right, we are here with John Zeuli, counselor. And John, I'd like to ask you, what differentiates your counseling practice from others?
Several things. One main thing is I know counseling should be a way to get on with life. It shouldn't become a way of life. If it becomes a way of life, if you're seeing a counselor long term, something's off. It serves the system. It serves the mental health system. You're going forever, or a year, years. It doesn't serve you. The more a problem is talked about, the more that neurological network is being reinforced in the brain. The neurons firing. Dr. Candace Pert is a beautiful soul. She was at the National Institute of Health in the mental health department, and she showed that through MRIs, functional MRIs, as the problem is talked about, the same neural synapses are firing. So it's actually, it can be detrimental. It's one thing if seeing a counselor was neutral, but you don't want it to be detrimental. So there's other ways for people to quickly, gracefully evolve.
Okay. I was in a presentation once where you talked about how people can quickly move beyond emotional limits. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. I'm a strong believer in personal evolution, that people not only can evolve, but given just the right stimulus, the right catalyst, they will evolve. And they'll do it very harmoniously, ecologically, for their personal ecology. So using neuro-linguistic programming, systems therapy, some science-based innovative tools, people can evolve quickly. It doesn't have to take forever. As a matter of fact, if it takes forever, it's not working. The brain wants to change fast. It's ready to. Whenever I'm stuck, I think whenever anyone's stuck, we're just going in a circle up here. So you want to bypass that conscious mind and evolve.
Okay, so with that in mind, how is your approach different?
I don't see people long term. Another big difference is they don't always have to tell me the content of the issue. Now, that sounds crazy, but I feel very strongly it respects their privacy, their dignity. I work a lot with PTSD, physical abuse, sexual abuse. So these people have been traumatized. It shouldn't have to go on, and they shouldn't have to keep telling that story. Now, of course, they can tell the story, but I work with people, I serve as a counselor with some vets with very severe PTSD, and sometimes they just have to give me a category. Okay. I had something traumatic happen. It was physical abuse, it was sexual abuse. I have traumatic memories. That's enough to do some of the exercises. Now, of course, if they want to go on and talk about it, that's fine, but they don't have to. So I think that's very respectful.
Okay, and who is ultimately responsible for the change? Is it the therapist or is it the client?
Well, it's a partnership, but I worked at a mental health center for years, a very nice one. But the tendency there is, and I'd be at staff parties, holiday parties, and someone would say, well, my client just wasn't ready to change. They're not psychologically minded. And that's a cop-out. I feel very strongly. If they went through the trouble of making an appointment and getting there, at least part of them is ready. And that's all you need. So I believe it's up to the therapist to be a catalyst for change, and that's a whole different philosophy. The way to make a fortune in counseling, and the easy way is just, how was your week? What happened? How do you feel about that? There's no preparation. How easy is that? It's not helpful.
Right. Okay.
So the therapist is responsible to be an effective catalyst, and then if someone sees me, they have enough energy and momentum. If they don't evolve, I'm not using the right approach. I'm doing something wrong.
Okay. Okay, and you once said that dysfunctional behavior isn't really dysfunctional. Can you explain that?
It's always, typically clients come in and they have this bad behavior. They call it bad, or it's dysfunctional. I have panic attacks, anxiety attacks. I don't get along well with people. My anger flares up. You can go on. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. It goes on and on. That was always an attempt. That behavior at one point served them, or it was an attempt to serve them. So I worked with a woman with a skin condition. She was in early 30s, and this is a bad skin condition. It's keeping me from relationships. It's interfering with my life. Well, we quickly discovered, and this isn't insight work, things happen fast with different approaches. And she'd been aware of some of this, suppressed some of it, but other brothers and sisters had been sexually abused growing up in the family. She wasn't, because of her skin condition. How, what an interesting way to save her from that. Now, had it outlived its usefulness? Yes. Could she find other ways to protect herself? She doesn't need to from the family, but to be assertive and protect herself. If she was in a bad situation, yes. But I admire that part's resourcefulness for trying to help her. And it did help her at one point. It just perhaps outlived its usefulness. And by not resisting that part, once that part finds out that we're willing to be its ally, that part's remarkably flexible and resourceful. The parts that people resist, the quote, what they call the bad parts, tend to be remarkably resourceful in generating alternative behaviors to protect them. That are more in harmony with the person's total being.
Right, okay. And then tell us about the great lie.
The great lie is that change, positive change therapy has to be painful, onerous. You have to work hard. If you're working hard, I don't think it's being done correctly. Is it challenging at times? Of course, but it can also be light, fun. By doing some of the NLP exercises and the systems therapy, it doesn't have to be onerous. It doesn't have to be painful. I'd say if it's painful, it's the wrong approach. We work with vets. I work with vets as a counselor, and these vets have been going to therapy, the VA sometimes for 30 years, 32 one man, and they just have them keep reliving it. Immersion therapy, it hasn't helped them. And they resist therapy for a good reason then.
Right.
It hasn't been helping, it's reinforcing it. So the great lie is that change has to be painful and onerous. No pain, no gain. And I don't believe that. That hasn't been my experience working with people.
Okay, great. What kind of client issues do you address?
Oh, I think I've mentioned anxiety, depression, weight loss, body image is big. PTSD is huge. Trauma, a lot of trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse, bad memories, bad experiences that have happened to people. And they carry them around, and it doesn't have to be carried around forever. It can be set aside.
Okay.
And also, I work with families, couples. Oh, also generative change. That's very interesting. Generative change is something you already do well. In other words, I see some people on occasion, I wish there was more, but on occasion someone will come to me for, I'm a good student, but I have some blocks. I know I could do better. A musician could perform near flawlessly in solo practice, but couldn't translate it out when performing in public. So generative change is how to do better at something you already excel at.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
You state on your website that you have a guarantee. What do you guarantee?
Well, it's a money-back guarantee. Okay. Now, of course, people are welcome. In writing, I say if any exercise wasn't helpful, within 30 days, you're entitled to a full refund. I believe I should be an effective change agent, or you shouldn't have to pay me. You should be able to get a refund. I was an offender bender. I have this on my website, and I was reading about how they guarantee their work. I was in the waiting room while they're doing an estimate and everything. And I thought, well, these guys guarantee their work, and it's for the lifetime of the car, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, maybe therapists should guarantee their work. And that puts the responsibility, much of it, on me to be an effective catalyst to help people gracefully change, harmoniously change.
I imagine it would take some of the pressure off the client as well.
It takes some pressure off, but they already feel the pressure. Again, for them to come in here and make an appointment, there's a level of motivation, and it's my responsibility to connect with that level.
All right. Well, do you have anything in closing?
Yes. One thought. I feel so strongly about change being graceful, harmonious. It shouldn't have to be horrendous work. Plus, pretend someone sees me they were physically abused as a child, sexually abused, or PTSD, severe anxiety. And by the way, when I first started working with vets, boy, have I learned a lot. I thought, PTSD is just a little anxiety. No, it's affected they've lost their businesses, homes, some of them. They have to live isolated. They paid heavy dues in terms of relationships. So it's severe. It can be very severe. But this change doesn't have to be painful. And once you make a change in one part, a significant intervention, it tends to ripple out throughout someone's whole system. So I'm not interested in saying how someone should change. They know the best way to change. There's 7+ billion people on Earth. We're nearing 8 now, I believe. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways to change. There's a lot of ways to be. I think it's arrogant and it's misguided at best. At worst, it's arrogant for a counselor to say, this is how you should be, or to even have that thought, this is how you should change. So what I love about this way of working is that they generate the change that's appropriate for them. And that way there's no resistance within them. It's very harmonious.
Wonderful. All right, great. Well, we'll be hearing more from you soon, I'm sure.
You got it.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
Brandy.
you.